Welcome back, beautiful souls. If you've been feeling overwhelmed, if the world feels just too unstable, and if your nervous system seems way more reactive than usual, take a deep breath with me. You are in the right place. Today, we are going to re anchor you, mind, body, and spirit. This isn't just about coping, it's about really remembering and reclaiming our power. Today, we're stepping into a deeply important conversation, one that so many of us are wrestling with quietly, which is how to stay resilient and centered and spiritually aligned during these heavy and frankly kind of crazy political and economic times. Hi, I'm Amy Rose White. I'm an integrative psychotherapist and make videos about psychospiritual self-healing tools. So let's begin by acknowledging something real. We're living in a time when the collective nervous system is overstimulated and on hyperdrive. Political polarization, economic fear, endless cycles of news and exposure to media at levels we've never had before as humans. Uncertainty layered on uncertainty. So even if you're not consciously thinking about it all the time, the energy is in the air. And if you're watching this channel, you are probably a highly empathic, sensitive person. And I don't mean in the way of like you're too sensitive or that you're not strong, but meaning that you pick up on energies and emotions in the greater collective awareness and consciousness or unconsciousness that not everyone does. And perhaps that's even happening without you being aware of it. That is extremely common. So when you add the information overload that we're all experiencing these days, how you're feeling makes total sense. The human nervous system evolved to deal with local threats in the environment, not global input 24/7. So if you feel emotionally tired, mentally overstretched, unusually sensitive, or just generally off, please understand you are not malfunctioning. You're responding to a collective overload. And this is where resilience truly begins, recognizing that your internal responses are valid signals and not weaknesses. When the world feels unstable, our minds jump into the future. We think racing thoughts like, what if things get worse? What if I can't handle what's coming? What if everything changes? Those thoughts don't come from wisdom or even intuition, in my opinion. They come from fear. That's well founded based on what we're exposed to. But here's the truth. You are not designed to hold the entire future at once. You are designed to meet the present moment. And presence is what grounds us. Presence is what brings us back into our bodies. Presence is what breaks the loop of fear narratives. So the most important first step is to simply recognize that when we're feeling overwhelmed, our mind has moved into dangerous things that have happened in the past and potential dangerous things that could happen in the future. And we're no longer really experiencing the right now moment, which typically, if we're lucky, is that we actually are physically and medically safe, even if we're experiencing fear in our bodies. So let's right now practice a simple way of getting back to safety. Right now, feel your feet on the ground. Relax your jaw. This is always tight for me. Let your shoulders drop and soften. Notice the air moving through your nose and into your lungs. Notice the space you take up in the room. This is the doorway out of fear. This is the foundation of resilience. So here's where spiritual understanding brings us deeper clarity. Current events often activate old emotional material. Economic anxiety might be echoing childhood instability, especially if you experienced chaos, including violence, neglect, or particularly economic instability in the home that you grew up in. If it was hard to pay the bills, you grew up in poverty, or even if you just saw your parents worry about money and work all the time, regardless of how much money was actually in the bank. That kind of generational scarcity is related to this because those fears are often transmitted through bloodlines, through generations of people who experienced the Dust Bowl, the Depression, slavery, famines, plagues. And we now know that these kinds of trauma, scarcity-driven experiences actually carry on in our DNA, and they are part of the stories that are verbally also shared in our families of origin as well. So that also gets kicked up. It can kick up wounds around worth. or just physical safety. And those considerations are often part and parcel of any wound we have around, do I deserve to be here? Is it safe to be alive in this body? Do I matter? Am I considered? Is it fundamentally okay for me to be here? Those core questions, existential questions, are very likely to get kicked up anytime there are murmurs around war, threats of violence, assassinations, and political conflict of any kind. Because, especially if they're mired with fear-based messaging around the dollar is going to devalue at any minute and that kind of stuff, meaning like everything you have might be taken away or worth nothing. Political chaos might also activate memories of powerlessness, experiences of not being heard, fear of conflict, trauma around authority figures, which is why the same headline affects two people completely differently. And in my opinion, it's one of the reasons why a lot of the Epstein news is so activating to so many people, not only trauma survivors, but simply because I believe, this is my observation, that people of all political persuasions are starting to really deeply question, if not completely abandon, trust in any authority figures in large governmental bureaucratic institutions, really on any side of the aisle or in between, having our best interests at heart. And I think that is a foundation that is crumbling rapidly in our society right now. And that leads to further feeling of disorientation, because many people really believe that there were some good guys out there. I'm not saying that there aren't, but in places of power and these larger organizations and governments, Jenga puzzles are starting to move around, and it's like the tower is about to fall, or maybe it's fallen and we're all witnessing it. This is not easy for us to handle. So there are a couple really simple, useful ways to respond. So for example, ask yourself, when you're feeling like this, what part of me is reacting right now? How old does this part feel? Is this fear from the present moment or from the past resurfacing for healing? This is where resilience really becomes transformation, and it can be useful to write down the answers to those questions, take a deep breath in between them, and simply notice what information comes up, if anything, and find curiosity, compassion, or a way in which makes sense to you, and let that part know that you're listening and that you get it. That's actually more important than anything, because if we just try to override that fear and say, that's not happening here, don't worry, it doesn't work. So we have to know that part, let that part know that it makes sense given all this historical material that we just went over and the current flood of information that we're receiving and trying to manage. So when you recognize the emotional layer beneath the reaction, you're no longer tangled in it. You're witnessing it with clarity and compassion. Most people underestimate how powerful media is, not informationally, but energetically. Every headline, every dramatic video, every heated comment section is a tiny hit, or sometimes a big hit, of adrenaline. It doesn't matter if you're strong or rational. Your nervous system receives the signal. Alert, danger, danger, something is wrong. I know for me, I live in Utah, about an hour from the recent assassination that occurred to a public figure. Sometimes those words get flagged by YouTube, so I think you know who I'm talking about. And I know for me, as someone who really tries to practice what I preach, I went down a rabbit hole of watching things online in that day and the following week that I should not have witnessed, I should not have watched, and I felt a tremendous amount of grief and sadness and loss and pain for many different reasons, and my personal story is not relevant to the matter at hand. But, even though I teach this and try to practice it myself, sometimes, especially if something happens close in your community, it is nearly impossible to resist the compulsion to learn more, to understand more, and to get involved. So here are some supportive shifts, which I used at that time and encourage you to, whether you're compelled by something that's happened locally or something that's far, far away from you. So number one, switch intentionally from passive consumption to intentional checking. Your mind just does not need a play-by-play of the world. I hear every day from people in my practice who are saying, well, to be an educated, informed, and caring, good person, I need to know. I need to stay attuned to the news. I need to stay informed. It's part of being responsible. And I would say, if that is a huge part of your value system, I'm not here to rob you of that, but I will say it's really important to ask yourself, how effective is that? How is that actually working out in your day-to-day life? Are you able to be more of service given that you listen to the news every morning, whether it's Fox or NPR? Is it supporting you to feel more kind, patient, and loving with your kids, your partner, or your friends? If it's not, check the story you have about how important it is to know everything that's happening in the world every day, or how much, even about a local news story, you really must know. Number 2, avoid emotional contagion sources. I would argue most creators or media outlets rely on fear triggering content to keep you watching. I would actually argue they all do this. Even really the most conscious or intentional creator is capitalizing on emotion to get you to watch, myself included. Full transparency. But I try to be mindful that I'm not saying something that's like fundamentally untrue to get people's attention. Whereas a lot of content, including just the nightly news, is going to do its best to make sure that you are exposed to material that brings on cortisol, adrenaline, and a sense of personal danger and vulnerability or anger, because that keeps us watching, and it's very compelling. And that's what makes people billions of dollars in ad revenue when we watch the news. So 3, if you're going to watch some of it, immediately go ground yourself. Go stretch, lay on the ground, literally. Breathe deeply into your belly, touch something physical. Like I have this squeezy thing. People that watch this know that I have all this stuff around here. Recognize that we need to engage in a practice that takes us out of that feeling of lack or fear and feeling out of control over places and people that are nowhere near us, typically, and back to our immediate environment where safety usually lies. Number 4, remember, suffering is not the same thing as caring. You can care about the world without losing yourself inside of it. No one is benefiting from your worry, unfortunately. I say that because if that was the case, we would have achieved world peace by now, because I know some professional worriers that make it a full-time 24/7, 365 job. But in all honesty, we have to create boundaries between these things, because losing ourselves in a spiral of negative thoughts and fears truly does no one any good. Resilience blossoms when you redirect your energy towards what is truly yours and your internal circle of influence. So here are 5 pillars that remain stable even in unstable times, or they can. 1 is your daily rituals. Routines regulate the nervous system. Even simple rhythms like having some morning stillness, drinking some tea or coffee outside, an evening reflection with a book create inner safety. Number 2, your inner story. The narrative you feed yourself becomes your experience. We can consciously shift from I'm bracing for disaster to I choose to meet each moment with grounded clarity, and I question my catastrophic thinking. 3, your boundaries. Protect your mental and emotional space, and doing so is not selfish, it's sacred. That includes the people that you hang around with, the people you listen to in your book club, the people you choose to sit by on the subway, the podcasters you listen to, the family members that you spend time with on the phone. And it doesn't mean cutting all of those people off, but it could mean maybe a 5 or 10-minute phone conversation rather than listening to them go on about some catastrophe for an hour. It might mean a period where you're not as social as usual and you just talk to 2 or 3 close friends once a week. You know, that kind of self-protection is really needed at this time in history. And 4 is a focus on your micro actions. So small, consistent steps create the antidote to helplessness. 1 task, 1 breath, 1 gentle movement forward. And what's key here is that those movements reflect your value system. Always talking about this with clients, because committing to our value system and acting in accordance, choosing behavior that is aligned with our value systems is one of the most empowering things we can do in the face of anxiety, OCD, world events, stress, trauma. connecting to our values, knowing what they are, and then showing up in a small micro way in alignment with that is incredibly healing. So this might be, no matter what is bothering me, I'm going to really focus on being present while I read my child a bedtime story before tucking them in. Or I'm going to show up at the gym even if I am too exhausted and overwhelmed to take a class or lift heavy weights. I'm just going to walk on the treadmill, or I'm going to do some band work. I'm going to show up in accordance with my value of health, my value of present parenting. I'm going to, donate something at the grocery store to stay in alignment with my value of contributing or volunteerism in some way. So staying in our routines according to our values really helps the body feel secure. And when we start engaging in things like self-abandonment, or maybe we're not brushing our teeth or taking our vitamins, or we're not doing that exercise because we say we don't have time or we're too exhausted, the nervous system continues to feel more and more ramped up and less anchored. 5, your spiritual connection, whatever that means to you. So whether it's meditation, prayer, nature, time, breath work, or something uniquely yours, your connection to the unseen is a stabilizing force no external event can disrupt. I would argue that nature is really kind of the easiest and most accessible and powerful one, because even if you live in the heart of the city, there's something going on outside, like a porch, a window, a bench, where you can sit and watch clouds, look at a tree, recognize that nature is always changing. That's predictably unpredictable. And we're both not at the helm of the wheel. And although that's unsettling to the brain because we want to control everything, it can also help us to surrender to what we can trust. We can trust that storms will come and storms will go. We can trust that the sun will rise and set. We can trust gravity, at least for the time being. Things like that give us more of an anchor, especially if we are having spiritual questions and conflicts, like why would a divine presence allow such terrible things in the world, to which we don't really have a deep answer. We have to still find places where there is predictability and trust, and nature is one of the best ones. True resilience is not about toughening up or numbing out. It is not about pretending you're fine. So many people do that. It's not about forcing positivity. It's definitely not about building walls. Resilience is softness with roots, courage with compassion, emotion with awareness, an observer mind, movement with grounding. It's a flexible strength. It's sort of like a spiritual elasticity. You bend, but you don't break. You feel, but you don't collapse. You witness, like the mountain, but you do not disappear. This is resilience that grows you, not hardens you. So what I mean by that is that we stay connected to the emotional experience, noticing what it feels like in the body without getting lost in the thoughts about it or the story. And those are two really different things. So you could try writing down, I'm worried about this XYZ, and I choose to release control over it, while feeling the emotion fully through your body. Then you take a deep breath and you allow it to go through your body just while you focus on the breath. If you really stay with the current present emotion, it typically does not last for more than a couple minutes. And that's what resilience is really about. It's not stepping over anything. It's being with it and then moving on to the next right now moment and the next right now moment. Here is the heart of this entire message. Beneath the mind, beneath the emotions, beneath the narrative of the moment, you have an inner sanctuary that remains untouched by political tension, economic stress, or cultural conflict. This space within you is ancient, it's steady, it's quiet, it's knowing, and it is yours. No government controls it. No market influences it. No headline defines it. No conflict diminishes it. This inner world is where your true resilience lives. Take a deep breath. Feel the depth of that truth. You are not defined by the times you live in. We aren't. We're guided through them. And the best advice I can give all of us and myself is to ask God, source, spirit, universe, nature, life, whatever you want to call it, to show you signs that that is true. And let it be specific. Do not be afraid to ask for a sign like an orange pickup truck or 5 big birds in a row or something like that as proof that you are being guided and supported and that we all are, even if we cannot understand the chaos in the world. I know that's a big claim, but I have never had someone do this and not be given their sign within a couple days. So try it out today and let me know in the comments below what happens. Let's close with a deep breath. Inhale and exhale. And as you navigate the days ahead, come back to this place, this grounded place, this aware place, the place that remembers who you are and what you carry within you. You are capable of meeting these times with clarity, compassion, and strength. Not because the world is calm, but because you are learning how to cultivate calm within the world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this inner work. And may you walk forward feeling supported, rooted, and deeply connected to your inner wisdom. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, subscribing to my channel. Leave me your comments. Tell me what works for you that I didn't talk about today. I truly and deeply appreciate that. And until next time, may you be safe, may you be healthy, may you be happy, and may you be resilient. Bye for now.